entire globe involving hundreds of different cultures explaining the same phenomenon by different names.
The nature of the footprints, namely their remarkable consistency, their biomechanical appropriateness, those aspects that are extremely compelling.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. This is the Bigfoot Influencers podcast. I'm Dana Halloran.
And I'm Tim Halloran. We are just thrilled as always to do this. We're so happy you guys are tuning in. And we just appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure that you head on over to the Untold Radio Network. We have I don't know how many shows we're up to now. Doug's might. It's
definitely more than 7.
Yeah, I think it might be 10 or 11 now.
Okay,
yeah, we've got a ton of shows. So if there's anything you like or you're interested in, you can find it on the Untold Radio Network.
Yep.
And just go over to there on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you listen to us on podcast platform, the same thing. Any podcast platform you're a part of, you can just head on over, look up the Untold Radio Network, and send us some love. We appreciate it. And speaking of love, I just want to give a shout out to Lakin Arnold. He just made such a nice comment this past week, and I just want to say thank you for that. We appreciate the kind words. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah.
And a bunch of you tune in. I was in the chat last night watching one of our other shows, and Charlotte was on there too, and Charlotte joins in every week. So we just appreciate each and every one of you. So but tonight or today, super excited for our guest.
Yep, we have Robert Leiterman.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure he'll help me if I'm
correct
not
you
right.
if you pronounce the last name wrong.
I think that's probably how you would pronounce
Robert's
it.
a legend. He's been around this for so long, and he's got a lot of exciting things. And I'm not going to take away from his thunder. So we'll bring him in, and we'll kind of talk about where he was, what he's done, what's he doing now, and get into it.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah, so let's bring Robert in.
Yep.
Hello, how's it going?
Hi, Robert. Welcome to the show.
Thanks
for joining us.
So
how you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I guess it's a Saturday morning or afternoon rather.
Yeah, you're on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast. So,
yep.
But we're used to doing that. We've had a lot of our guests, like Bob and Kathy Strain, who and some folks like that, and Daniel Perez, and folks are out on the West Coast, and our folks up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
So we make it work.
Everywhere.
We appreciate you joining us on midday. So we thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
No
so do you want to give a little intro, or maybe Robert, why don't you intro yourself and give us give our viewers just like a little bit of what you're all about and what you do there.
Yeah.
In California.
Well, yeah, I'm in California. I've been born and raised pretty much out this way. A lot of people assume California is like Southern California, but that's just a part of it. I'm in the northern part, north of San Francisco. Although people like to claim that's Northern California and stuff. But yeah, I got into Bigfooting, I guess a while ago. As a kid, I always had an interest in it. We all watched the Legend of Bogey Creek movie, got scared. I guess first time I watched that was at a movie theater. That was pretty exciting until I had to go pee. And then I had to walk all the way down to the bathroom. So that was pretty scary. And then I kind of followed the shows here and there, but I really didn't put much faith into any of that. It was just like an entertaining thing. It wasn't until like college I started reading stuff instead of my assignments. I started doing some entertaining reading and started keeping notes. And at probably the time I got suckered in, originally was when I was working as a park ranger. I was doing interpretive programs, like programs on natural cultural history. I go, well, let's just do one on Bigfoot. That'd be fun. So I did a bunch of homework on it, did a lot of research on it. And it's one of those folklore and mysticism sections. So you don't want to, get too serious about it. So I had slides. I had tabloid magazines for my handhelds, little show things. And I just had the slides about the process. So I told the story and then I kind of added a bunch of humor to it the best I could. And that kind of got me started. So the boss was okay with that. That was all good. And at the end of one day, this guy shows up, John Freitas, and he shows up. He's got this pickup truck. He's got a huge shift speaker on it. It says BFRO on it. And he goes, hey, I'm a fellow peace officer. I kind of work down in the north, I live up north. Hey, we want to do some call blasting. I'm like, what? Yeah, you know, we just take a alleged, Bigfoot calls and we blast them all over the place. Like back then, we're talking like 1999-ish.
Wow.
Well, back then, the part about call blasting was how far can you send the calls? You got to let the people halfway around the county know you're out calling. So, and he happened to show up on a Labor Day weekend, and that in the parks is kind of a really busy time with a lot of people. So you kind of don't want to know your customers. And we also have these birds. Well, we have two types of birds. One of them is a marble murrelet. It's a pelagic bird that's endangered, and it nests in old growth forests down where we're at. So it's federally protected, so you can't scare it during certain times of the year. Another thing called the spotted owl, and that was another one that was protected. So we had sound ordinances that says you can't make any loud noises basically during the summer period. You have to wait till the winter time. And so I encouraged him to go somewhere else, and you can't do it here. So I told him where to go, out that way. And I thought that was kind of the end of it, but it ends up being where it turns out that they actually wrote up something on their visit, and then they were there because there was a sighting. It was a father and a son over at Burlington Campground at Humboldt Redwood State Park, and the dad and son were on the river trail, and they were walking, taking a tour. And then the son's shoelace came untied. So he said, hey, tie your shoe. So the kid bent over, tied his shoe, and the dad was standing there. And that's when the dad saw what he described as a half-naked individual, hairy from waist up, walking back and forth up the side of the hill between some trees. And then he said it stopped and rubbed his back on the tree. And that's when he got excited. And then when he got back down, he reported to the BFRO. That was in August 23rd, I want to say, of 1999. And when John Freitas showed up, it was September. It was Labor Day weekend. So you can see how quick that was turnaround. So when all the customers were gone, I decided to go investigate it myself. So I went up there with another park person, and she was a good tracker. So I had her use her tracking skills. So based on the photograph of what that was put up by the BFRO, we located the location they were at, and we went up the hillside, and we found a camera strap, a old cigarette, and a big stump that fit the bill. So thus became the investigator, the Bigfoot investigator. That was my first Bigfoot, follow-up report investigation.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
So you went up. So she was tracking something.
Yeah, what she was doing is she's a skilled tracker, so she's looking for disturbances based on the photograph. Standing on the trail, looking up the hill. That's how we have to match the location.
So, because the photograph was taken by the dad.
The photograph was taken by the investigators from the BFRO that were up there investigating
of the site.
At the site. And then when they posted it, they put pictures up. And one of those pictures was taken from the trail shooting up the hillside where the father allegedly saw whatever was going on. Yeah. And so we're using that photograph along the trail, walking, going, is this it? Nope. Is this it? Nope. Until we finally found a matching area. And lo and behold, there's a stump up there, a huge redwood stump that was burned out and covered with moss and stuff. So we went up the hills looking for all sorts of sign, disturbances, broken branches. Well, what we found was a pathway, pretty much a game trail pathway. And in late September and in towards late September and August, around that time, the redwood trees started dropping their duff. So it starts covering everything. So the trail wasn't real good to track, but we did find a pathway which led past that stump we talked about. And that's where we found the cigarette butt. That's where we found the camera strap. But we also noticed
from John, right?
Pardon?
Which was probably from John.
Well, I'm not going to blame John.
Oh yeah, we don't want to get John because he's still out there doing it, so we won't get him.
Yeah, he's still working hard on that. It was from their group, and it was just something you kind of forget, leave behind. But that just told me that's where they were at too, and it matched everything. And the description was an alleged Bigfoot rubbing its back against a piece of wood, whether it's a tree or whether it's a stump. So you're looking for what? You're looking for disturbances of scrape marks, right? So we went up to that big stump and we looked at it, and it was an old burnt stump that had a fire a long time ago, an old redwood stump. And you scratched it, and it took off the charcoal, and it took off the moss that was growing on it. And there was no indication of anything rubbing that stump. So it wasn't a stump, not that stump. And so we were like, oh, I don't know. And then we looked off to our left, and we just followed that old game trail pathway. There's a spur that went over to this other redwood tree that's probably about 1.5 foot ish in diameter, and the bark on it was a younger redwood tree, so it was pushed down and moved to the side. So we looked at that, going, huh? So from about 1 foot off the ground to about 6 foot up, something rubbed against that young redwood tree, and you could tell the bark is real fibrous and soft. And it was pushed back. And so we go, oh, look, evidence. And I didn't think about collecting hair samples or looking for any hair samples there. I just go, look, well, we know what was rubbed against. And there was another spur trail that went past that and went over towards some shrubbery, and it went right over the top of these big piles of shrubs, and it went downhill. And I'm like, wow. So it wasn't a footpath. It was just like an area that animals use, and you can't find the details to it. So it's a game trail, and you can't see foot placements, but you could tell something big went through there. So I thought this was pretty cool. I went ahead and said, yeah, this is it. So I guess I'll follow up and see what we can figure out. So my partner there, she didn't want herself in any of the photographs. So if you're doing any Bigfoot investigation, some people don't want to be photographed to be associated with it.
Because I go, okay, Robert, well, at this point, you still weren't really into it. You were just curious of what was going on, right?
Yeah, I wasn't. I could take it or leave it. I was just providing interpretive programs and just educating people on it. But I just thought this is an opportunity to, I don't know, disprove it. Why not? So I decided to go ahead and do that. So now we're taking photographs, but she doesn't want to be in it. So I got pictures of the tree, I got pictures of the ground, I got pictures of the stump. And I was used for a size reference. So I stood there with my Stetson. By the way, as a park ranger, you wear Stetson. When you do your interpretive programs, it's part of your uniform. So you're not supposed to be shot without it. So got my Stetson on. I'm posing in front of this picture. It's a great shot. I go, this is going to be good. And then I do a little write-up. And what I did with a write-up is I just wrote what we found, which is not confirming a Bigfoot sighting, but it was confirming that there's some disturbance there, that something actually most likely rubbed against a tree and mostly exited stage left and went down over the hillside because it followed the pathway. And so I put that together instead of putting it as a report for the department because they're not excited about those kind of things. I sent it to the BFRO, Matt Moneymaker. And within him receiving it, I got this, phone call. Says, hey, how would you like to be a curator for the BFRO? And I go, what's a curator? Well, somebody who follows up on sightings or talks to people and sets them up. Like, okay, I'll do it. Sure, why not? So that became my first investigation of following up on Bigfoot reports. And I became a member of the BFRO in December of 1999. And that just opened this door, Pandora's box, if you want to call it. And now I'm following up on reports and meeting interesting people. Freight is now a good friend. He's setting him up for interviews that I kind of bomb a few of those in the beginning. But I still can't come out and say, hey, I work for the state of California. I'm a state park ranger. They give me a gun. And I believe in flying spaceships and UFOs and all sorts of cryptid monsters. So I continue to do my interpretive program. But once that article went out, it ended up back in my supervisor's box because all of a sudden there was a complaint. The article went up. It was posted. More so than I expected it to be. And I said posted, it was through the BFRO.
Yeah, so that's odd that they tracked, someone was, especially in 1999, that they were able to be that diligent to track it back down.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's when I stay up at night going, listening to, that's like the internet system when you're waiting to get information.
Right.
It takes forever. Right. Yeah, it's like, my God. Now you push a button, you expect it, before you push the button. But anyhow, So I got to sit down with the supervisor in the office saying, hey, did you write this? Yeah, I wrote it. who took the pictures? I go, well,
Bigfoot.
yeah, Bigfoot did, but the person didn't want to be in it. So I got a cease and desist order from my supervisor saying you can't use any more state time or state equipment or write anything else about this. But the problem was, for the last couple of years, I had been doing interpretive programs on the subject matter. So now I'm not allowed to research my subject matters that I got the approval to give to the public. The article did not say, hey, I believe in this stuff. It just regurgitated research information like you're supposed to do. Anyhow, so after the cease and desist order, I think 9 months later, Really Scary Stories was looking for somebody to interview. And because of my involvement and because I was a ranger, a person in responsibility positions that's still going along with the Bigfoot research stuff, that let's interview that guy. So they had to go through the department to do it. And so the deal was made where they can only ask me questions that the department decided were okay to answer, right? So their department sends a list to the guy. I get to take my nice shiny white truck, all washed out, in my ranger uniform and drive all the way towards Crescent City in Del Norte Coast area, Jed Smith. And I get to be interviewed for Real Scary Stories, a program about kids, in the woods getting lost and chased by creatures, I guess. Anyhow, I get to be interviewed. So during the interview process, it's a beautiful shot. You can imagine me sitting in my white patrol car, wearing my Stetson. The sun is setting. I'm on the side of a hill. It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful shot because all the sunsets of the orange is reflecting off the clean white pickup truck. Can you guys picture all that?
We're visioning it yet.
It's an awesome shot. I wish I was there right now. But anyhow, so I'm sitting there, and then they start asking me all these questions that I can't answer because they're not on the list that was sent to me. So they ask me, oh, no, I can't answer that. No, I can't answer that. No, I can't answer that. I finally say, well, if you're looking for information like that, you need whatever. Anyhow, so I made the cutting room floor, of course. But another gentleman, he has passed away since, but he had a cast. And on this cast, there was hair fibers on this cast. And they were still attached to the cast. And he was standing there holding his cast with the sun setting behind him. Most beautiful sunset ever. He made the show. I did not. But that's okay. But that was my first, no, you can't. No, you can't talk about Bigfoot. Oh, yeah. 9 months later, guess what? We're sending you over. We're going to pay your travels and everything. So it didn't make it there, but I still got involved with the researching and a bunch of other interviews. So it was kind of fun, that first initial push to get you into something that most people think, you got to be crazy to be involved with something like that. And so my nickname now, which I didn't know about until James Bobo Fay told me that I was the Bigfoot Ranger. So now, I'm the Bigfoot Ranger now. So
Robert, I have to ask you a question. Yeah. So why do you think your department didn't want you answering all the questions?
Because it's a subject matter that could be controversial. And every time we're talking to the public, we're not supposed to be involved with controversy. So we can talk about it as myth and folklore, which I did. Humor gets a long ways. So myth and folklore, it was just fine. But when you start doing an investigation on it, that makes the department go, what are you doing? An investigation is every time you represent an agency and you do something, if it's good or bad, it reflects poorly or positively on the agency. So if you're going to go out and do these kind of things, you probably should get permission. So I guess what I probably should have done is says, hey, is it okay, my department, if I write this article and send it to whatever? But when I write the article, I'm not writing it on state time or writing on my own time. And it's an interest of mine. And I didn't think it'd be a big problem. And if I had to do it again, I would have done the same thing because I still don't think it was a problem. But it did open doors. It did open doors for me to investigate things. It made me reevaluate the whole process. At that moment, though, I'm still thinking it was something else, that it maybe was a bear. It was a long distance. That rubbing against something and walking back and forth in two legs is not an unusual behavior for a bear. But the person
it was all the way down to, you said, as low as 1 foot off the ground.
Yeah, 1 foot off the ground to about 6 feet on this tree. So
Wow.
something, like if you sit in a squatted position and lean it back against something and move up and down, then you're going to have that, free range of motion, which means nice squat and full extension, which is, that's like 5 feet, I guess. If it's about 6 foot up and it's 6 foot off the ground and it starts a foot up, so it's about 5 foot. So 5 foot of contact, whatever was rubbing back and forth on that.
But they said that this creature or whatever was only hairy from the waist up.
That's the report was. It was human-like features, hairy, moving back and forth, stop, slide up and down against something, which the guy thought it was a stump, which ended up being not the stump. The evidence said it was
just like hairless from the waist down.
I don't have pictures.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if they described in more detail.
All you saw was the waist up based on topography.
So he might not have saw the bottom.
Oh, he didn't see the bottom. Okay.
No, he only saw the upper torso.
Gotcha.
And moving back and forth. When you're looking uphill and there's a vegetated slope, everything's going to be blocked except for the gap. Like if I was a predator and I was looking for a snack, I would flank a game trail that's used a lot. And I could be up above it and I'm harder to see. And the people down below can't see me very well, but I can get a good look looking down. So we have something that's up on the hillside doing its thing. And somebody down below got lucky and was able to see up through gaps. But based on the vegetation on the hillside, they could only see from the waist up. And only through the gaps of the trees that allowed them to do that. Which brings up another situation that Bart Catino had some thermal footage of. And he filmed it for 45 minutes of something in the Sierras that was a heat signature that was moving back and forth between gaps and trees. And not stopping and rubbing its back, but moving back and forth. Well, another one was stationary and something was dropping a rock, something was throwing something, and something was moving farther in the back side of it. So I guess that's not an unusual thing for somebody to look up and see something. And because of the topography, you only see it through gaps.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
And so based on the 6 feet tall, and if it's the middle between the scapular bones, I guess in the middle of the back, you can kind of guesstimate maybe how big it could have been.
Well, yeah. Well, how long are the legs? If there's long legs, then that's a long squat. I would expect if the legs were really long, I would expect it not to be so far down. I mean, you're only scratching your back, right? How far down you need to go? Really? Yeah. And bears do stand in front of trees and scratch their backs. But they take, the steps are short because the way they're built. And I mentioned before that I couldn't really pinpoint the exact stride length. All I know is that the path, because of the fall redwood duff covering the ground, that you couldn't see details, but you could see where it gets packed. Bears will walk the same path and they love to stick their feet in the same holes. And that's why you get these little indentations, but they're not long stride lengths. They're shorter, which is a dead giveaway for them. But this hadn't been an active pathway that is beat in. So I couldn't use any of that. All I can go by is with the RP, the reporting party, saw as he was looking up for that short window. And when you go up to the site, you can see what evidence are there based on foot traffic or rubbing against the tree or even height. What I would have loved to ask is the height of the stump. The stump was a decent height stump, but he said it was rubbing against the stump, but there's no way that could really happen very well because the stump is a certain height and the trees are off to the side. But when you're looking up a hill at a distance, and it's almost like a three-dimensional model, right? You have all these things in front of you, and it's hard to judge. Distance is hard to judge how far something is away. A prime example is the Patterson film. When you're looking at it, you don't know how far those trees are by just looking at the footage, right? You have trees in the foreground, you have trees in the background, and it's moving. It's moving. She does her once over in 352, and she looks back, and then you have that tree in the back and the stump over here, but you can't tell distance very well because it's just so far away. So in this situation, that's the same thing.
So Robert, here's a question for you. So you're retired now, right?
Well, I'm retired from park rangering, but I still work at college.
And so like, did you ever get any other witness experiences from people who are visiting the park?
Yes. That's one of the neat things about it is when you give a presentation about a subject, about cryptids, let's say, I don't know, like Bigfoot creatures, whatever. You give this presentation, you do it tongue in cheek, you flash your tabloid magazines, you tell your stories. And then when your presentation is done, people come up to you afterwards and they say, this happened to me, or that happened to me. There's a list of activities at the Humboldt Redwood Park that have taken place over the years that the visitors believe they were Sasquatch activities. Anywhere from screaming to shaking trees to stepping out of creeks or whatever, moving along. Tree knocks is something you hear. Screams, like in Burlington Campground, it's the only campground we have open on the off season, and we close a lot of the loops down, so we get a minimal visitation. But sometimes in the winter, with no access across to the other side of the large part of the park, is people report heard screams at night, from the campground. We hear about that,
So what do you, so my question, so can you share maybe like one of the most compelling experiences that you heard from a witness?
Well, let's start with the one that Daniel Perez investigated a long time ago. A Caltrans employee, early morning hours, sun's not up yet, it's kind of dark. He's driving around trying to do his early morning stuff. And he sees what he describes as a Bigfoot, basically running across the roadway near the Founders Grove, running across the roadway, disappearing at early morning hours. And his description was bipedal, which means two legs, not on all fours. And it was early morning hours, and that's interesting because you see bears all the time, and I've never seen a bear run across the road on two legs. I've seen them run across the four legs and stand up at the last second in trying to turn and look before they go kind of uphill or something. And I've seen that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I went to Olympic Peninsula for 9 days of Bigfoot research. And I was with a friend coming back, and we got to 101 in Redwood National Park, right almost at the peak. And I'm driving half asleep. We've been driving for a long time. And lo and behold, this dark, hairy figure runs across the road in front of us, a slam on the brakes to miss it. And as soon as it gets out of the front end of it, it swerves towards us and stands up. It was a bear. But, for that second, you're like, we did it.
Right. Especially you're on your way back from 9 days of Bigfoot research.
9 days of researching and having the whole concept of the Bigfoot phenomenon kind of reassured, like there might be something to this based on your investigations up there. And you're like, I'm waiting. Yeah, I wish I would have saw one. And then cue the grizzly bear, cue the Bigfoot. And it runs in front of your car in the dark at the most unopportune time when you're half asleep. And I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, I would expect a lot more people to have these great encounters at the last second when they're dozing off and see something, and only for a brief second, and then try to decipher what it is that they saw. Mm-hmm. But going back to the Humboldt Redwood stories, I had a search and rescue I was on where individuals get lost. What they do is they kind of don't pay attention, and then they get a little confused, and then they decide they're going to hike uphill, even though they never hiked uphill. They're going to hike uphill and then really get lost, and then they're going to call 911 in an area where cell reception is not very good. And then you're going to hear, and then you're trying to figure out what's going on with that. And then we get called out to go search for them. And of course we find most of them. And then we call it off. We're good. We got these guys. So I'm driving back, and I was on a quad. I parked off of them, a toll road on the turnout, and I rode my quad up into the northern portion of the park. It's pretty wild. I love it up there. It's great. And then I ride my quad back. It's dark. It's like almost 10 o'clock, and I park it, and it's good. We're all ready to go. So I load it in the back of my pickup truck. I secure it. I take care of everything, and I'm like, okay. Turn the engine on, get it all warmed up. And then I'm thinking, I better go back outside and make sure I secured it, because when you're out late, sometimes you don't do things you should because you're half asleep. So I open the door back out, and I go to check it, and I hear this whack from the trees way above me, probably within 50 yards away up the hillside. And I'm like, that sounds like a knock to me. And it's not the first time I've heard it, but whack. Big knock up there. What's the coincidence? The timing of that is I'm getting ready to leave, and I get back out of my car, and there's this big knock way up the hillside. And it's really not way up the hillside. It's within a stone's throw with a good arm. And it's time for me to go. It's late. And I'm like, do I wait? So, of course, I waited about 10 minutes. And, of course, I don't hear anything. And I go, okay, get back in my car and finish heading back. Because my partners are waiting for me to get back before we can all go home, right? So I'm not going to string them out. But there was nothing there. Another time I was out for a real long walk. I was over at the Rockefeller Forest. I was on the other side of the creek. And it's getting late. I'm walking back. Everything's good. And you know how you kind of get in that zone when you're walking? It's like you feel at peace and you're thinking and you're walking. And there's one section where I double backed and I was just going to cross this footbridge. And as soon as I passed this large tree, whack, I hear one of those again. And it's just beyond the big trees. Of course, I stop and go, did I hear that? And I creep back a little bit. I'm trying to peek around that one tree near me to see if I can see anything. I don't see anything. So I look around and find nothing. It's just like, was it a tree knock? Or was it one of the old ancient redwood trees that have large buttress cracks that run the whole length of it that allow the flexibility of the tree, and they move and they pop? But then you say, well, the wind's not blowing. And why was it only one tree? And so you always have to be rational about the things you run into. So it was like, oh, I don't know. So I waited there for a bit, started getting dark. And of course, it doesn't happen again. And then I have to hustle walk back to my unit because it's like 2 miles away and it's getting dark. And I didn't bring a flashlight because, you know, it's extra weight. You don't want to carry around on your belt because I'm carrying all my Batman extender stuff and my boots and my Stetson sometimes ball caps. And we go for the long walk and it's not that long. It's only about an hour or so. And then if stuff hits the fan, then you got to go back to your unit, get other search stuff. But anyhow, so that's a couple things. So then of course, you talk about the shadows you see, and then they're not there anymore. That's always makes you wonder about. And then you hear the calls occasionally, and you're like, well, I don't know if that was a coyote or something else. But it's like if the visitors recorded the calls at the Burlington campground and they could play it back for me, I would be able to compare that sound and what they heard. So I don't know what it is, but I've heard a few calls and I go, well, it's not quite a coyote. It's not a fox. I don't know what it is, but it's basically inconclusive if I can't really match what's making that noise. But it's another one of those things that you see or you hear or experience. They make you go, because you're a skeptical person. You have to be to make right decisions, right? There's a point where I'm less skeptical, but I'm still not raising the flag saying, yeah, it's out there. But I do that because for years, I've always been taught to be skeptical about things. So don't jump to conclusions like the film site. If I would have jumped to conclusion that we think we found it and we didn't find it, I look pretty stupid. So if your name's on something, you want to make sure it's done right. And so you wait till the all reasonable doubt. So I still function that way. I annoy a lot of people because I always say, well, what's the other facts? Like Bart, my good old friend, Bart Catino. We were investigating an area in an undisclosed location near Redwood National Park. And we were on the trail, right? And our job that day, we've been on the trail many times before. So we hike up, we find a place slightly up the hillside, and we sit and we wait. We get there sometimes right before it gets dark. And the whole point is to sit there right before it gets dark and you wait and you hear what you hear. And then you start doing either calls or knocks. Well, a month earlier, Bobo and Bart were walking the very same trail and they had some knocks and sounds and they had something flank them and move around. And so they left a tarp on the ground with a recorder going and they left. They came back later, retrieved the recorder in the tarp, and on their tarp, they have recordings of something going, walking around on the tarp. Interesting. So a month later, Bart and I in the same location. And that's when we were out there doing these sounds and knocks, trying to get a response back well before the Finding Bigfoot show. I was trying to get some response backs. So we, I forget if it was a call or a knock, but we do it and get nothing. We wait a little bit. We do it again. We knock. And within 3 minutes, we get a knockback. And that's just a coincidence, right? You know, timing. So we wait 7 minutes and we do a call. And 3 minutes after that, a tree falls down. So I call it the tree failure event. and Bart calls it the tree destruction event. So those are two mindsets of the same action, where Bart has more luck with the slurm, and he's more on the page of, I know it's out there. I'm totally convinced. Robert's on the point there. Well, I've got so many things that have happened, but I can't confirm what it is that made these things happen. So this is a tree failure. And Bart is on the other side going, this is a tree destruction, tree failure, tree destruction. We both witnessed the same thing, but I'm still holding reserve for a lot of things. So that pisses a lot of people off, especially my good friend Bart. And every opportunity he gets to say, well, Robert, what are you going to say now? Now I had to come up with some kind of excuse why I don't believe him. Like, well, it sounded a little different. So he's always every time we have a crazy thing happen, he pulls me to the side and he looks in my eyes and he says, so what do you say now? What percentage of believer are you now? But if you do the math, it comes down to 49% is a no and a 51% is a yes. So I'm on the 51%. There's something weird going on out there, and I'm not so sure exactly what it is, but it could very well be a bipedal primate running around. But I can't say I've seen one. I can't say I heard one. I can't say I smelled one. I can't say that's the guy who threw rocks at me. I can't say those are these things, because if you don't see who's doing it, then something's doing it. You got to figure out what it is.
All those things happen to you, but unless you can't attribute it to it unless you saw it.
And here's the thing too, Robert. So Kathy and Bob Strain are friends of yours, correct?
Yes, they are.
And we've interviewed them. And Kathy probably, for me, has one of the most compelling eyewitness stories that she had in Area X.
Yes.
So what do you think about that? I mean, being that you are a skeptic, which is, I agree with you 100%, is so important. We should be a skeptic to everything in life that's happening around us. We should always question things.
Yep.
So what do you say to that kind of experience that Kathy has? And especially since you know her so well.
Well, I have no reason to doubt what she's experienced. Those are her experiences. And I've listened to her share those things. It's crazy. It's something reacting to what you do. It's running around. It's fast. It's smart. It's more than one. And that whole Area X thing, it's incredible when I listen to them talk about it. And I'd like to go there one of these days to experience that as well. I'm not going to say that none of that stuff happens. It happens to her, and I believe everything she says about that. Those are experiences, and she's had them, and she's not the only one who talks about these things. She's been at it a long time, and so is Bob, her husband. And when they tell me these things, I take it for what it is. I believe them on the stories.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
I get a little jealous, of course, to say, well, how come I wasn't there? Or why can't that happen to me? And,
why didn't you invite me on the trip? Hello.
Yeah. Of course, I've also had something a lot of people don't experience too, and they call it the samurai talk. And
that's super cool.
I was with Bobo. And this is kind of a funny little story here, because the first BFR expedition that I had the privilege to organize through Matt Moneymaker was in, I want to say 2004. And it was in the Redwoods. And I had to get some guest speakers. So I actually had Kathy. She did a tracking class. I had the two Sierra Sound guys on that one. And Ron Moorhead and Dave Berry.
Al Berry. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Al Berry. Yeah, I have a Dave Berry friend of mine. I keep calling him Dave Berry. Sorry. I'm dyslexic, but I also switch people's names around all the time. Yeah. And I have a cousin in Louisiana who I can't pronounce any Louisiana words properly. And I can't even finish my sentences because she's always like, that's Chapalaya, not I Chapalaya. Well, there's an A and a T, So anyhow, so that's where I'm at. So going back to what I was talking about, if I almost forgot. See, when you get old, you kind of forget. You drift off.
I know. Hey. We have that too. So you were talking about Kathy and Bob Strain.
And the thing you're organizing.
Right.
Yes. So I have the sound guys. I have
Ron Moorhead
and Ron Moorhead show up for this. So they're giving their talk, and they're talking about all this incredible Sierra sounds, right? And then they're playing the tapes, and I get to hear this, and I hear them go, I'm like, oh shit, I can do that. I can make stuff like that. And I'm selling the tapes for them, $10 a pop, and I buy a couple for myself. And then I'm in the back of my mind, I'm going, how do they know? I mean, did they see? How do they really know? So be careful what you ask for. 9 months later, I'm on a special, the Shelby Car Club is going on a BFR expedition. It's a special expedition. So, Mel's there, Bobo's there, I'm there, Matt's there. We're taking our clients out from the East Coast, Shelby Car Club. And we're on this walk up the same area where Bart and I have had some strange things happen to us. Anyhow, so we're using night visions. Ours are like Gen 1.5. So you always see it's hard to navigate. But Mel has a Gen 3, so he's doing really good with that. And we're walking up going really slow because we don't want to turn the lights on. And we get overrun by this group that Bobo's leading. And they're using their infrared, which means in the low light, your night vision can pick up the infrared beam. You can see it like a flashlight. And we're just stumbling along those root systems trying to get there. So they go in, they pass us up. 10 minutes later, the radios come on, the portables. It sounds like they're being attacked and ripped apart. And so basically what happened is while they were up there, they started hearing calls and movement around them, and it chased them out. And they had a Gen 3 night vision, but they couldn't see anything. So they came out. We went in. We sat there. Nothing happens to us. Be careful. Nothing. We hear owls. Maybe it was owls they heard. So whatever. So we kind of leave. And we're like disappointed. So we come back the next day, and I'm bringing a few other people. It was Mel, it was Bobo, and myself. We're looking around, and we find tracks, large bipedal tracks in the softer soil at the bottomlands there, which makes me think, And then we find a medium size and a smaller one. It's like Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, but they just don't look like bear tracks. And so we're like, oh, this is odd. And it's the same area where the weird stuff took place. So we finish your expedition. So Sunday rolls around. I know I'm sorry. I'm already got a lot of stories. I got to lay the foundation before.
No, we love you. Are an amazing storyteller. Keep on telling us, Robert.
So our days are Sundays. We send the clients. We say bye clients. Thanks, it's been a great time. And then we go out and we spend Sunday night by ourselves. So Garrett, where do you think we went? We went to the place where the strange thing went down. So we're on the hillsides with our Mel's got his listening device farther up the hill. I'm with Bobo. Our clients are free. But before to get there, Matt was supposed to join us. We're supposed to walk up the trail. But right before we left, something large crashed through the brush at the end. And Matt decided that he's going to ride with somebody else to go drive up and down that one road. But I'm going in. So I'm going in and trying not to use my flashlight because there's something huge out there. We do have elk, so it could very well have been. Mm-hmm. And they do frequent that area, but it was scary. Something huge crashed into the brush, making noise on purpose. But not me. I'm too stupid to go in. So I go, it's probably just elk. So I go in there with my intermittent light, and I thought I was a smart guy. So right where we made our plan to go up the hill to spend the night, we flagged it with flags. And I was being real smart. I'll use a white flag. No, I'll use bright red flags. I think they were bright pink or orange. And I got to that area scared shitless because there's something I know was out there and I'm trying to move fast. So I try to call my buddies who were up there on the radio, and they turned the radios off. So they won't even listen to me. And they turned them off because Matt was talking a lot on the radio. So they want to listen to it. So he turned them off. And then I'm trying to get in there. Hey, where are you guys? Come get me. The problem was I got to the location and then I couldn't find the flags. Well, when you take flags and you put them all the bright colors at night, you don't see bright colors without flashlights. They blend in like leaves. You can't even find them. And I don't want to turn my light on because, I don't want to give away the location there. We're trying to keep it quiet. And then I go, well, what about night stuff? Well, Robert didn't have any night stuff. So I turned on the light intermittently till I finally found the flags. I made my way to the top, and then thank God I'm up there. So while we're up there, Mel's farther up. He's running his recorder. Bobo and I were cooking bacon, eating bacon, cooking bacon, eating bacon, and giving some to Mel. The whole idea of the bacon thing, which is Bobo's favorite thing to do, was during the daytime, a lot of the smells go uphill. At nighttime, they go back down. And so we're trying to flood the bottom flat areas where the activity took place with smell of bacon. We're thinking, oh, this is going to be good. And plus we got to eat bacon. It was good. And so we got nothing, right? So we're kind of half asleep. So Bobo and I are kind of sitting back to back. He's a lot bigger, so it's more like my back's to his like hip or something. Anyhow, so we're sitting on this hillside waiting for I don't know, something. And then I was woken up, and it was real something I've never heard before, but I take it back. I have heard it before, but never out in the wild. And it sounded like whoa, and then I was awake, and then Bobo was awake, and I go, what the hell is that? And he mouths, I don't know. Well, that was the samurai talk. That was very similar to what we listened to that Ron was playing. And I'm thinking, 9 months earlier, I was making fun of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am on a hillside in the dark. And we had this same similar thing going through. Now, if I were to say what was being said, I'd say it was like, can I go up there now? Can we go up there now? No. And that was my interpretation of what was being said. And
yeah, that's interesting because we were just talking to Rick Nelson.
Yes,
was it Rick Nelson?
Language guy.
Yeah.
Oh, we were talking about him.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't talked to him yet. We listened to him, and he said that it's a definite language. And like sometimes if you hear a foreign language, you can almost understand what they're saying, just like you were saying, Robert.
Yeah,
like you can almost translate just by the way that they're. They have like, when it's a question or when they're responding and stuff like that. So that's interesting that you say that.
It's the voice fluctuations, whether you speak a language or not. It's the voice fluctations will let you know the meaning behind it, whether it's aggressive or whether it's soft or whether it's funny. It's almost like
whether it's a question,
or a statement. And it sounded like it was like a question followed by an answer, and the answer was abrupt. And we didn't hear anything for a while, but we eventually heard something moving on our flank sides around us, moving up the hill real quiet. And just for references, I want to say that was in 2004. No, late 2004, 2005, when the Shelby Club thing was going on. First expedition was 2004 when I heard the sounds from Ron and stuff. And then it was later on in, oh gosh, time flies. And then it was quite a few years later when I was with Bart, when I heard when we went up to listen to sounds, and we had the knocks return and the tree fall down, as Bart would say, the tree destruction. The tree fell down, and that's the same exact area that everything went down in. And here's another coincidental thing: is you have something that happens in one area, it's just a coincidence, right? Then you start saying, well, it happens after I do this. And you say, well, is that a coincidence? Well, we did it twice and it happened both times. Well, that's no longer just a coincidence. That's almost like a pattern. And so you have an area that's had several things happen up there. So it's not coincidental. So here's the skeptic guy who was actually 51%. So he's actually a believer at 51 versus 49, who still looks at things scientifically and wants to prove beyond reasonable doubt, because just so many people are so quick to jump at the bandwagon. There's also so many people willing to condemn your investigation because you don't do it right. Because you go in the investigation believing that you have something without really proving it. So you go in with preconceived ideas of what you have, and you're going to find exactly what you want to find. When you go in without preconceived ideas and be open to the investigative aspect of it, you're more open to ponder the evidence and to prove or disprove it. And when we did the third sighting with Bart in the Sierras, that's the approach we did over the 9 days investigation. And that was quite interesting. And for that investigation, my job was to tear it apart and disprove it. And that's like a whole story for another evening. But
right.
But that was Bart's thermal footage, and I was just the lead investigator who he told me to tear it apart, and that's what I tried to do. But
that's such a super smart way of approaching things.
Yeah, well, in this day and age where so many people are critics, like you have people who are jealous of your success and they'll blow holes in what you have, and then there are people who want to make themselves look smart by putting you down. And then you have people who are just skeptical. No matter what happens, they're going to have a skeptical approach to it. And it's okay to be skeptical, but you should be fair. You should be fair too.
It's so interesting, Robert. Are you getting like a Les Stroud vibe from Robert? Like, are you related to Les Stroud? Because you sound like him. You kind of look like him.
It's really, It's
Go
funny.
ahead.
I should send the picture up. I don't have it here. It's a picture of LeStroud in his book cover with this bandana over his head. And he's standing.
I had that photo. Yeah.
And then I have a picture of me holding his book, doing the same thing.
Oh my God. Okay. Cause Robert, and you also have like his same kind of philosophy too, with the approach to Bigfoot. So we did actually interview Les. He was one of our first people, but I'm like, you need to do your DNA and check that out because
well, my Canadian ancestry is from Quebec.
And that's what it is.
Nova Scotia.
Do you have, I mean, did you ever live there?
No. Born and raised South Central Los Angeles and immigrated to Northern California. So I'm looking at my phone right now while we're talking. I was going to send you that picture. I almost thought about sending it to you, but I didn't because I didn't want to be too forthcoming of pretending like I'm LeStroud, you know.
That's
no,
funny.
you were from the get-go. I was like, he's like his brother. Something's going on here. I don't know what is
weird. I was thinking the same thing.
Where
I was
are you?
say
Get out of here. That is so funny.
Yeah, well,
that's awesome.
While we're still talking, I'm looking for that picture right now, and I have it in my phone, so I'm looking for it as we talk. I can almost multitask.
That's cool because we're getting to the last 10 minutes here.
So we gotta get into the book.
So yeah, we need to talk about your book, Robert, because we want everybody to know about what your book is and what it's about.
It's actually your second book, correct?
I'm sending you that picture right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I see it?
I could probably pull it up.
Oh my God. Can we do this? I don't know if this works.
No, I can probably do it on film here.
That's so awesome.
If Les doesn't get mad at me.
Dude, I mean, so apparently I'm not crazy. So I'm not the first person that's thought this.
No, you're not the first person. It was brought to my attention by somebody else. I thought I'd just have fun with it. But
I mean, I think now, because that was a picture of Les taken a while ago. But like Les, has aged since that picture.
Yeah.
So he's got that little bit of, sprinkling of white going on. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So I think even now more than ever, you really look and you sound like him, and you just weird, have the same words, it's have the same philosophy. Fun. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, Robert, we want to hear about your book.
Yeah, the Bluff Creek Project book.
Yeah, so tell us about that.
Well, it all started. It started when I was into videography, and I met Steven Streufert a while back. And I think in 2007, it was a special event at the 45th anniversary. And I was with, I met Steven at the in Willow Creek. And then after that event, we went over to Lost Camp and we chatted around a campfire. And he was talking about this lost film site, which he went to 2003 when they couldn't find it. And anyhow, he's talking about it. And I said, oh, yeah, that'd be great. And a few years go by. And then in 2009, I get involved with videography. So for the BFRO, I'm after videotaping everything and I edit it out. So we have over 100 YouTube videos on the BFR YouTube channel that I was editing and doing. So that was a big thing for a couple of years. I give the guy a camera and he goes crazy, right? And so and then teach him how to edit, instead of giving me fish, they taught me how to fish. So I was just like going crazy with it. So I decided to do these things. And one of the projects was Steven. So Steven and Ian were going to go find this film site that got misplaced. And at that point, I really didn't care where it was or anything about it. I'd been to the area, but it wasn't big. It wasn't important to me. It was just, yeah, it's nice. I'll go somewhere else. Anyhow, so I like the area, but didn't care about the film site. Because only zealots go to the film site, and I'm not a zealot, so I wouldn't do that. So I go over and I show up at the bookstore in 2010, and now I'm their new videographer who's going to film them in the research. So I kind of got suckered in after a few days. The next thing you know, I was no longer the videographer. Well, I was the videographer, but now I was a member of the team of three. I was asking questions because I was learning. Steven he's a great speaker. He has a lot of knowledge, and he had blogs going on. So everything was a PowerPoint. So we sat down in his office at the Bigfoot Books, and we went down his blog like it was an outline. And I learned so much about it. And I got to the point where I was, hey, this is kind of pretty cool. Hey, we should find it. And it's like, that's why we started. So in 2010, we did the basic bulk research. About 2011, we kind of had an idea where it was, and we finished out end of 2011. We were convinced. I was probably the last guy to get convinced, but it started out with Stephen and Ian, then me, and then Ian kind of backed out a little bit because of health issues and family back east. And then I pulled in Rowdy, and then we ended up pulling in Jamie, ended up pulling in a bunch of other players too. And Kip's involved with this, Tate's involved with this, Dustin Severs is involved with this. People get mad if I can't remember all their names. I know I'm missing.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into last names. There's too many.
Yeah.
Now. I'll put them in the show notes.
So it's a group, and we've been doing it since then. But so in the process of doing the videographies, it's like in 2012 we bring Bill Munns down and we show him the site, because Bill Munns never been there before, but he did magic. He's got a great book out, something about Patty, and I can't remember the name right now. Sorry, but he did a lot of work. So we brought him down, showed him the site, and it was a great to watch him walk down there. And just as soon as he got close to the big trees, this thing developed on his face, and it stayed there for the longest time. And it was really cool talking to him about it. And he had his trees, and he's double checking what he had. But we had to remind him a couple times. Well, Stephen did that, when he's on podcasts, that there was this group called the Bluff Creek Project who kind of helps you find the place. So you got to remember that, credit where credit is due. So about 10 years go by, and then I said, we should make this in a book hard copy form. I'd written several books at that time, fiction, mostly fiction. And I go, well, this is kind of like not fiction. It's true. It's nonfiction. So we should do it. So I wrote the nonfiction book. I got other members of the team to contribute articles. Stephen did the forward for it. And it was a great project. And it's kind of, I love it. It's just a perfect way to get away from me. Perfect way to hold things
Right.
up. Keeps the doors, open when I want to do it. And so we were trying to tell people about the film site and make sure they got the facts right. There's still some people who don't believe it, but they don't go down to the right area. But that's just the way it is.
So how long did it take you? You started the project and you said 2010?
Yeah, well, 2010 is when we started doing the video part of it. And 2010 to 2011, then 2011 to 2012, I'd say about 2 years-ish. 2 years to pretty much be convinced. I mentioned earlier that your name means something to you and your reputation. And being the person I am and who I work for, I want to make sure that I'm interpreted correctly. So we want to make sure the book was right. And that's why we didn't jump too early on the gun. We want to make sure it's done right. So I was like the last guy to say, okay, I believe you, because I just wanted to make sure that everything was right. And people enjoyed the book. It's not just about Bigfoot. It's got a lot of other things associated with it. And it was kind of fun to write. I remember some people look at it and go, wait, you got too many pictures in here. Well, yeah, pictures tell stories.
They do.
Yeah, there are a lot of pictures in there. So I'm not.
And it's a big book. Like, it's a big book.
It's only a big book because of all the pictures in it. But
right, but
yeah, there's a lot to say and a lot is involved in the story. And the pictures help describe what's going on. And we got maps in there. We drew maps. In order to find the film site, we had to grid out the sandbar. And since Renee's DeHinden's overview 71, you can't climb the hillside and take that picture. It's a forest. So you had to go on site, do north-south lines, create blocks, squares of 30 foot, draw in the artifacts of the 30 foot, and then compare what you have with the DeHinden 71. And then you have your match. And that's what we did. And they also have the background trees. A lot of people just use the background trees. Well, there's a lot of big trees, but they're not always in the patterns you see. But it was easier for me in my mind to understand it if I used the artifacts, which are the stubs, logs, positions, and compare it with the background trees. And that was helpful.
And since they're still there, I mean, because the film was, 1967. So.
right.
Yeah.
So, Robert, how can people follow you? Like, are you active on social media?
Well, not real active in social media. I'm still like that recluse guy that, he's still a dinosaur when it comes to stuff. But the Bluff Creek Project has everything. We also have a camera project, and they post the camera footage. We have special events like on after Bigfoot Days in Willow Creek. We have a booth, and we talk to people about it. I went to BIgfoot, which is kind of nice. I kind of showed up for that.
Did that just happen?
Yep.
Right?
He just got back from BIgfoot.
Yeah. Kip, my good buddy Kip talked me into speaking there, so I spoke there. It was kind of fun, and I also did some more speaking stuff over at Willow Creek. And so it's kind of fun doing all these different things. I'm looking at it right now in the book too. Yeah.
Tim's
so just
posting
that. For the folks that are watching and not listening, here I just pulled up the Amazon website, the Bluff Creek Project, and for you who are listening, you can just type that in or Robert's name, and you definitely can find it there. So just want to make sure we shared that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a nice book. I really like it. It's done very well, and we got a few good reviews, and I guess the most thing people say about it is that it flows. It's a good read. It's not just about the Bigfoot stuff. There's a lot of variety of other things associated with it. So which is kind of nice, and that I really appreciate. So yeah,
that's definitely one that we don't have.
Yeah, we don't.
We need to get that one.
We will.
Yeah.
And we could have done a whole show just on that.
Probably, yeah.
100%. Don't worry, Robert. Our cat jumped on our laps while we were talking a few minutes ago.
Well, I just had some people walk in the house too.
And no worries. We're our time's up
anyway.
winding it down. No worries, Robert.
Yeah.
But we thank you so much for being on the show. You are like super, super interesting, and you're such a great storyteller. It would be awesome to actually meet you in person one day. So hopefully that'll happen.
Him and Les together.
Yeah, you and your brother, Les.
Yeah, he's probably a third cousin once removed or something.
You never know.
Yeah. Well, apples don't fall very far, and I'm not going to say we're related, but it is funny though. Sometimes the mannerisms people tell me.
The mannerisms.
Yeah, and make sure that shot. Get that nice shot in there.
Yeah, I think so for sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask him.
Yeah, we're gonna ask him next time we talk to him. All right, Robert. Well, thanks again, and we really appreciate you being on the show.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and thanks for talking, and hopefully you'll pull me back on again, and I
absolutely. Oh my God, you're full of stories. We love you.
And Robert's gonna be in the next book too of mine.
So really? Cool.
Excited for that. So
thanks again, Robert.
Cool, Robert. We'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
See
you later.
That was super cool.
He's been around. He's he's got so much information and his background. He's in the woods. He's just everything you want. And his objective point of view is
I love that.
Open-minded, but a skeptic.
You have to be.
We have to be.
You have to be.
Unless you see something making a sound or doing something, you can't,
You have
if
to
you
look
see
at
it, that's
it
a whole different
with
thing.
a skeptic, right? And everybody, this is our kitty, Leia.
No, it's been jumping on us during the whole podcast.
Been jumping on us the whole time. She wants love. I think it's because we're getting close to dinner time.
Maybe.
So everybody say hi, Leia. Hi, everybody.
Well, we thank you guys for joining
us. Guys, so much for being here. We're don't forget to comment. If you have any questions, you can comment. We're always around to answer your questions, and we appreciate you for watching us.
We're going to play a quick promo video before we take it out. See you guys later.
Bye.
Are you ready to uncover the mysteries of Bigfoot? Join us for SquatchCon Idaho 2023. This year, we're bringing the magic directly to your screen, or join us in person. Witness the world premiere of the enhanced Paul Freeman Bigfoot footage. Doug Hychek discovered a secret within this enhanced video you'll have to see to believe. Hear from an all-star panel of Bigfoot experts like Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum, Cliff Barackman, Brian King-Sharp, and Michael Freeman. But that's not all. Get exclusive online bonuses such as Bigfoot-themed wallpapers, a Bigfoot coloring book, an interactive Bigfoot quiz, Squatch Nut Field Guide, get a copy of the Freeman Bigfoot Files ebook, and more. Whether you attend in person or watch it live online, you'll be part of an unforgettable experience. Don't miss out on this unique opportunity. Secure your spot today. SquatchCon Idaho 2023. Step into the unknown.